All right, we're back here on SportsLine, getting set for the Predators and Blues tomorrow night, Game 1 of their Western Conference second-round series in the Stanley Cup playoffs, just after 7 o'clock in St. Louis. Catching a break here again in the second round. No real late start times. Last year we got so used to the 9:30s. This year, not the case. 7 o'clock again for games 1 and 2, Wednesday and Friday in St. Louis. Then a 2 o'clock afternoon start on Sunday at Bridgestone Arena. That'll be interesting to me because the atmosphere was so incredible for the two primetime games against the Blackhawks in Series 1. I don't think you worry about Smashville being excited and ready to go, but it does change things a little bit when you're walking in from the outside on a Sunday afternoon. A lot of people probably coming from church just as much as they're coming from the honky-tonks, which maybe changes a little bit of the preparation of the fans, so to speak, going into the game. Then finally an 8:30 puck drop for Game 4 a week from tonight at Bridgestone, which probably will be a pivotal game in this series as we see things stand out. Series continues back to St. Louis for Game 5, if necessary, which it was not in the first series against Chicago. That game would be next Friday night, a week from Friday, so 10 days from now. And then back to Nashville for Game 6 a week from Sunday. And then the following Tuesday, May 9th, back to St. Louis if necessary for Game 7. NHL.com hockey writer Robbie Stanley joined us on the Electric Power Company's Sunday Sports Central just a couple of nights ago to help us dive into this series. It feels like it's going to be different. It feels like it's going to be tougher than what we saw against the Blackhawks. Here's Robbie Stanley on the Predators and Blues. And here now to break down this second round series between the Predators and Blues, NHL.com writer Robbie Stanley. Robbie, on paper, this appears to be a very different looking series than Blackhawks Preds in round 1. Blues a much heavier team. How does that impact what the Preds will send out on the ice?
Yeah, I think when you look at this Blues team, you mentioned they have some speed, but they're a lot heavier as well than the Blackhawks were. I think the Predators are going to have to play a more physical style than they did against the Blackhawks. And I think when you look at this Predators roster, they have options in order to do that, whether you want to send out Mika Salamaki, who missed pretty much the entire season but came back in at the end of the regular season. He's got some offensive flair, but he also has the ability to play physically as well. You've got Vern Fiddler, who probably doesn't have the speed to match up against the Blackhawks, but if you want to play him against the St. Louis Blues, you have an option to do so there. And you also have a guy like Cody McLeod, who has been known as a fighter in the regular season, chipped in a little bit offensively, but brings more of a physical role. So I think Coach Laviolette's going to have more options to put some of those more physical guys in the lineup than he did maybe against Chicago.
One guy who is pretty physical is Colin Wilson. He obviously missed the entire Chicago series with that lower body injury. On the ice today, he looked pretty good to my eyes. Do we think we see Colin Wilson in Game 1?
Yeah, I mean, that would be big for this Predators team if they can get him back. Like you said, he looked good at practice today. I think he moved well. He was participating in all the drills. And remember, he's a guy that's got 18 points in his last 20 playoff games. They don't call him Playoff Colin Wilson for nothing. So he's made a name for himself in the postseason. If they can get him back and he can play to the same level that he has in the postseason the last 2 years, that's going to be huge for this team. From
playoffs Colin Wilson to a guy who's just been spectacular so far for the Predators in the playoffs in Pekka Rinne, a 970 plus save percentage in the first round against the Blackhawks. He and Jake Allen have been the two best goaltenders in hockey in the second half of the season. So does he have to be just as good in round 2 for the Predators to advance?
I don't know if he has to be as good as he was in round 1. I think that would be a lot to ask, but he's going to have to be good. There's no doubt about it. It's no secret. When you get to this time of year, you get in playoff hockey, you go as far as your goaltender takes you. It's the same thing as a quarterback in football. So Pekka Rinne was outstanding in the first round. He did a great job, was really effective at playing the puck, not only making the saves, but playing pucks behind the net, kind of acted as a third defenseman for this Predators team. So I think if you get a 930, 940 save percentage out of Pekka Rinne in this round, you have to like your chances. I really like the way the Predators are moving the puck offensively. I think they're going to be able to get to the interior and attack Jake Allen in a much more effective way than Minnesota did in round 1. So I think if Pekka Rinne gets that 930, 940 mark, the Preds should be fine.
Like Rinne, Allen was terrific in round one against Minnesota. This St. Louis Blues team has been terrific since the coaching change from Ken Hitchcock to Mike Yeo, one of the best teams statistically in the league in just about every category. How is this team different than the one the Preds beat 3 out of 5 times this year?
I think they just have a little bit more freedom. When you look at the way they play offensively, I think Coach Yeo just lets them play a little bit. They're creative offensively. They've got some talented players. When you look at Vladimir Tarasenko, Alexander Steen, you've got David Perron on the forward group as well. And a lot of people thought that maybe this was not going to be the Blues season when they traded away Kevin Shattenkirk, but they played well defensively after that. And of course, Jake Allen has a lot to do with that as well. So I think they have a little bit more offensive freedom. They have some speed, not quite as fast as the Predators are, I don't think, but they are a little bit heavier than the Predators are. So there's a lot of talent there. You've got an elite playmaker in Vladimir Tarasenko. That's going to have to be the guy that the Predators key in on.
Unlike a year ago, the Predators get short travel and they have rest going into round 2. What's the key for them, though, to win this series against the Blues?
I think you have to capitalize early like they did against Chicago. They did a great job all series long of coming out of the start gate and did a really good job in the first period. And that's an area where they struggled in the regular season. You saw how good they were in the second period. The first period wasn't so good in the regular season. If they can come out in the first period like they did against Chicago and do that same thing against St. Louis, this Predators team is so good at playing with the lead. They're able to get to their style, play their style of game more when they're playing with the lead. If they can do that, I like their chances.
And of course, as a wild card, once again, they're going to have to steal at least one game on the road, so it'd be nice to get one in one of the first 2 in St. Louis. Quick prediction, Robbie.
I like the Preds in 6. I mean, I really like the way they match up against this St. Louis team. I said it before, I didn't pick them to beat Chicago, but if they did, I think they have a chance to play for a long time, and I really like the way they match up with the Blues.
You sweep the Stanley Cup favorites in round 1. A lot of people are believers. Robbie Stanley, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff from Robbie on Sunday night on the Electric Power Company Sunday Sports Central. Predators getting set for the Blues. Another interesting thing for the Preds here is because they were so good in round 1, the last time they played was last Thursday. So it will be 6 days between their last game, game 4 of the first round, and game 1 tomorrow night in St. Louis. What impact will that have? We'll have to find out. But the Preds actually got 2 days off after that series. Hey, that helps you rest up, heal up, all that. That is good. As several guys told me this week, look, when you can get rest this time of year, you don't turn it down ever. Rest can be a secret weapon in the playoffs. But when you're playing as well as they were playing on an every other night basis during that series, essentially, do you really want to take that time off now, or would you rather just get right back out there and play? And when you think about it, they had 2 days off before that final game because of the Neil Diamond concert. So the Preds have played just 1 hockey game in what will be a 10-day period before they drop the puck in game 1 tomorrow night. That'll be a test. It'll be a real test to have the same energy, the same intensity, and be ready to go in the same fashion they were in round 1. Now, they did a great job in round 1 coming right out of the gate, and they had 4 or 5 days there from the end of the series. But can you keep that going when you've played at such a high level so far in the playoffs? Blues lost that 1 game in the series, which meant they got into the weekend. I think they took 1 day off after the series and have been back on the ice this week. So maybe a little bit of an edge to them to keeping the rhythm going. It's not like they were overly taxed only playing 5 games, but yet a little bit of a more normal schedule for St. Louis as they get set for the start of this series. Preds, we'll find out if that layoff had anything to do or has anything to do with how they will come out and start this series. Because again, I believe those first 2 games in St. Louis are critical. Obviously, if you go down 0-2, it becomes a long climb out of that hole. But if you steal 1 as the road team, even just 1 as the road team, you got to feel pretty good about your chances going the rest of the way. Back to the phones we go. Lines are open. 737-7767 is the number. Let's go to line 1 and Marlene. Marlene, good evening.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the call.
Listen, I'm getting interested in hockey.
Good.
And how many games do the Predators have to win in order to win the playoffs?
Yep, so you have to win 16 games in the playoffs to hoist the Stanley Cup. So they took care of the 4 in round 1. They've got 3 more series like that, which they'd have to win. This round against the Blues, the Western Conference Finals, and then the Stanley Cup Final to win it all. Each series is best of 7. First team to win 4 advances. So to win it all, Preds need 12 more wins. They could have to play as many as 21 games to do that, though.
Okay. Well, now how many games have they already played? 4?
4 games in the playoffs, yep. They won all 4 against the Blackhawks.
All right, now they got to play how many for St. Louis?
Yep, it's a best of 7 series again, first team to 4. So if the Preds win the first 4 again, they move on. If it takes 7 games to go, they'll play 7 games.
Okay, I didn't know. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for the call, and I hope you enjoy the playoffs because this is a fun time of year. I've said it before on this show. To me, for my money, there's a lot of great playoffs out there, a lot of great sports out there, but the Stanley Cup playoffs are really fun in my mind for the simple fact that so many games are tight. Everything is undecided. I mean, we saw the 1 seed in the East in the first round in the Capitals get really tested. You saw the Atlantic Division champion in the Canadiens get bounced in round 1 by the Rangers. You saw the Blackhawks, who were the Stanley Cup favorites coming into the playoffs, get swept by the Predators. Each series is a life into its own self. Each series provides an opportunity for both sides. You don't always get that in other sports. You don't always get that in March Madness where both teams have a chance to win. You don't always get that, certainly in the NBA in a 7-game series. It seems like more times than not the better team or the higher seeded team just ends up winning over the long haul, especially in the early rounds. But in the Stanley Cup playoff, it's so much about who's hot and which goaltender is playing the best at that point in time that allows you to move on, and it allows you to see some significant upsets and really good hockey, really competitive hockey. And we saw in the first round, no Game 7s, but they had 16 games decided by overtime in round 1. 16! That's a record for any round in playoff history. So these games are tight and they're interesting. And again, as I've said before, when you get to the final few minutes of regulation and it's a tie game and the next goal essentially wins, or you get into overtime and it is sudden death in the playoffs, you can't look away from the TV. If you look down at your phone or get up to grab a drink out of the refrigerator, you very likely will miss the end of the game or maybe the end of the series. You cannot afford to look up because hockey happens so quickly. It is nervous, it is exciting, it is intense, it is all of that wrapped up into one thing. And it just goes and goes and goes and goes, and it is can't miss stuff. It is eye-popping stuff, and it is really terrific. So for the people who are just kind of catching on to the Predators and their success because of round 1, more power to you. Welcome to the bandwagon of Stanley Cup playoff hockey because it is fun, and I invite you to stick around because each of these games, I mean, it's nerve-wracking stuff because anything can happen just about at any given moment, and each goal, each game means everything this time of year. Before we take our break, a little more Predators talk here. We're going to go to head coach Peter Laviolette, who met with the reporters talking about this series, talking a little bit about that layoff and what he sees from this Blues team. Much better now under Mike Yeo than they started the year under Ken Hitchcock.
In terms of stuff, is there a difference or two that you expect in the series against St. Louis as opposed to what you just went through?
I think their identities are a little bit different, but I think we've done a pretty good job of adjusting inside of our division to the team that we're playing. Some of them are a little bit faster in puck movement, some of them are a little bit heavy, some of them combine both, but I think our guys do a pretty good job of figuring out how we need to play.
How much have they adjusted better since Mike took over defensively and overall? Why have they raised their level of play?
I can't necessarily, I'm not sure. I can't answer what goes on in that room. I'm not really sure the details of that, other than the fact I read the numbers like you do. You know, they're gotten, since February 1st, they're the best team in the National Hockey League. So they've got a good game going right now. Their goaltender's playing well. don't know why that happens sometimes when there's a coaching change, but there's been a good response by their club, and they're playing really well right now.
What is the balance between making necessary adjustments for an opponent that may have a different versus knowing that you had a very successful formula in your last game?
Well, I think we've got to figure out what it is exactly that we need in the lineup. I'm sure we'll be making adjustments. I mean, we didn't make that many adjustments in that first series because we didn't have to, but you notice around the league, almost on every end, there's some sort of an adjustments that are made, and we'll figure those out as we go. We got to have a starting point somewhere, and we're confident with whatever players we put in there and whatever style we play. Yeah. How have we? Well, I mean, it does. I think a lot of games we played the way we liked them. Not necessarily all the time. There's always games in there that we're not happy with, but I know that we're able to do it. I know when we go to Winnipeg, we got to play a certain way. We go to St. Louis, we got to play a certain way. We go to Chicago, we got to play a certain way. But that doesn't mean we won every game, but we play a style in a way that we think we have to in order to be successful. Yeah, there's no comparison. Well, I feel like we're normal right now. You know, it was not normal last year making those trips out to the West Coast, and like I said, there's a physical and a mental part of that fatigue that goes on inside of those two series. So it's nice that the travel isn't right now. It isn't what it was at this point last year.
Is there any downside to having almost a week off?
Does it matter what my answer is? You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I guess we're fortunate in one sense. We're playing Wednesday. It could have been Friday. You know, if teams kept on playing or winning yesterday, it is what it is. You know, they had to play one more game. I don't know what that did to them. I don't know what it does to us. We'll be ready to play. You know, our guys will be ready to play. We're excited to be here at this point in the year. And, you know, whatever the schedule is, it is. There's nothing you can do about it. So you've got to make sure you put yourself in a position to win game one.
Like rhythm and things like that. Is that
again? It's whether it does or it doesn't, or it is or it isn't. It's irrelevant. It's the schedule's set, and our guys are going to have to be ready to play.
Some of the opponents are heavier teams. The Blues qualify perhaps as one of the heavier opponents.
Yeah, I think their games are always a little bit heavier with them. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's probably different, to be honest with you. I can't answer that. It's a good question. I'm not saying I just haven't thought about it. I know overtimes can be taxing, you know, inside of a series. When you get to game 7, you do the best you can. I don't really have an answer for that, sorry. Well, he's a big forward. I mean, he's had a good year for us. He's big, he's strong, he protects the puck, he skates well, he's capable of playing offense, a 200-foot game. You know, when the time comes for him to be back in the lineup, our guys will be excited. I think he could play either game. You know, I think he could play any game. He's a good 200-foot player, and he plays it fast too. So, I mean, we wish we had him in there in the Chicago series, but the guys that we did put in there, they did a terrific job. Well, I coached him a little bit with USA, and he's a real steady two-way player. Good in the face-off circle, good in the defensive zone, good in the offensive zone. So, a good 200-foot player.
Back on the Blues change, I mean, you saw them one time in this stretch. Was it a different team to you than the one? I
thought we played pretty good, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't like to score. I thought we played a decent game. It was coming off of a back-to-back for us where we had a big game the night before, but there wasn't that. We didn't notice that much of a difference. They're a good defensive team. We're going to have to do a good job offensively against them. Is there what? No, I mean, we got a couple days of rest, so that was good. You know, guys that are banged up get a chance to heal. That's good. The rhythm part of it earlier, there's nothing you can do. There's no. I don't have an answer for those type of questions. We finished when we finished, and we start the next series when we start, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So it is what it is, and I guess that's part of playoff hockey, is just being ready to go whenever it is. Whether it's a 7-game series where you got to start the next day, or whether you get 4 or 5 days off, and you just got to be ready to play.
First round, was there a goalie as good as Pekka, Jake Allen, about as close as you get?
Yeah, you know, I don't want to comment on anybody else's goaltender, but I can comment on ours. He was excellent. I mean, he was outstanding.
From what you've seen from Jake Allen?
I'll just comment on our goaltender. He was excellent. He did a tremendous job and gave us an opportunity to win every game.